Here we are.
Buddy, I've had the worst
Welcome to
day.
Over 50 starting over. I'm Merle Garrison, and that's Barry Edwards.
Yeah, I hope my mojo doesn't rub off on anybody today. I got up early this morning to do the typical thing. Hope to go to the gym. Of course, I couldn't ride my bike. It's storming like crazy. There's some branches down, and then our internet was out. So now it's like, oh my God, I can't go to the gym. I got to figure out this internet thing. Try to reboot all of that. Lisa is still sleeping, which is unusual. She usually gets up at 3:30 or so. And, I'm like, worry about her. And I'm like, hey, hon, she's behind closed doors and stuff. And then she gets really angry with me because she left me a note on a paper towel and said, I didn't sleep all night. Don't bother me. And here I am, no internet. Now she doesn't share some of the secret information with me so I can call AT&T and get that resolved. So at this point, I'm just kind of angry. I pack up all my stuff and the dog and come over. Fortunately, my renters left early.
Right. It's looking good over there.
So here I am. So I pull up to the street. We're on this dead end street here, and a telephone pole is down, blocking everything. I have to park a little bit away and haul all this stuff in 3 trips, including a dog in a cage.
Oh my gosh.
Get in here, and then you and I have endless problems trying to get connected to Zoom, which I'm not surprised about one bit.
It was par for the course for your day.
It's 10 a.m. And this is late.
Yes.
So
yes, it is. Yeah. Well,
okay.
It's now we got to just go with it, man. Because that's all we got to do here.
I'd really like to know what was going on with that audio, though, so it never happens again. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, our friend Irby passed last week, and I'm going to the viewing this afternoon.
Oh, it's this afternoon. Okay.
As soon as I post this, I'm hoping to be out of here by 2:30 or so.
Right.
And boy, we got a lot of nice feedback from a lot of Irby's friends that thanked us for the show, and I really appreciate that. A very dear friend of Irby's, Anthony, if I'm going to mess this name up, Anthony DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo, pretty sure I got that. He says, I'm one of Irby Greenwood's oldest friends since the 2nd grade, and we text and talk every day. I saw the podcast regarding him, and I thank you. I will be in Cleveland for his memorial next weekend. That's this weekend now. And we are going to go to East 55th to talk about his love of life. And I have this gig going on with my mom. Everything is just coming to a head here. And so my mom's 80th birthday is this weekend. We're leaving tomorrow to take her to Amish country. And I'm going to try to get back in time for this gig at East 55th tomorrow evening. And I really, Anthony and I emailed back and forth several times. I got to know him a little bit. I'm looking forward to, hopefully I see him at the viewing today. But I'd at least like to see it at East 55th tomorrow, along with some other friends of Irby's. I think that'd be great. I wanted to say that Irby's brother, Ed, who I've met a couple of times, love this guy. He reached out, also thanked me for Irby's dedication, the podcast. And we talked about how kind Irby was. I hate saying that in past tense, but I really look forward to seeing Ed again today. And I hope he's doing great. Also want to say Charles Pierce commented on our video. Thanks for the kind words about Irby. He will be missed. And he really, really will be by a lot of people. And also, I'd like to say that Megan Buckaloo left a couple messages and said, my heart breaks for Barry. Barry, grieving is not about being selfish. It's the opposite. It's self-care and preservation, and that is needed when you lose someone that you love. I totally agree, Megan. And I understand what you're saying. I really, really appreciate your kind words. I really, really do.
I think that was really a wise thing that she said, because, it's sort of like, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't actually take care of anybody else. You can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. And so that's really what she's talking about. I picture that thing that the flight attendants tell you when you're about to take off, is that when those oxygen masks drop, you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you pass it along to your kids. So I thought she encapsulated the right thing in her message very well. I've got another one here from Wendy Burns, and she says, Merle, what a touching episode this was. The correlation between allowing yourself to feel grief and that being that being a reflection of love made me think of a quote from a Marvel movie. Yes, Marvel, she puts in quotes. And the quote is, but what is grief if not love persevering? And that is really,
I wonder what movie that was from.
I don't know, but I just got goosebumps on that.
Yeah, that was a really good quote.
It really was. She's a deep person. Yeah.
I wanted to say about the seemingly feeling selfish about the lost thing versus not. My point is that I'm talking about myself. I think it's great to grieve my personal loss. I still am, but I'm thinking about if I get the chance to say something. There's the viewing today, there's a funeral tomorrow that I don't know if I'll be able to make. I want to discuss how these things are different today than they were a few years ago and get your feedback. But if I have a chance to say a few things, my point is I don't want to be making a spectacle about myself crying and stuff. I want to be talking about some really beautiful things that I know and I want to share about Irby.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It's about Irby. It's not about me.
Right.
But given that I guess I'm referring to last week's podcast. I just heard the news, and it was a little tough for me to keep it together there in the beginning.
Me too. Jeez.
So what is, I know. It was just, when you see your friend hurting and stuff, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I've had that experience with you as well. So when I went to Tazon's funeral last year, Irby's son that was murdered, I guess you call it viewing. I think that's synonymous with wake. Is it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. So I went to that and, spent some quality time with Irby. And when they went, then there was the time when the family, everybody is getting ready to do the funeral part.
Right.
And that's when I thought it was most appropriate for me to say goodbye and let family do that. So in this instance, the viewing or / wake and the funeral were all on the same day. Now, so I was talking about this with Lisa.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that before.
But I've been to funerals like that.
Oh, you have? Where the wake and the funeral were the same?
Yeah. But then Lisa says when her father passed away 10 years ago or so, it was more than that, about 15 years ago, that he had like 2 viewings. I kind of remember doing funerals like this too. There's 2 days of viewings. If you couldn't make one, try to make the other. And then the funeral was on the 3rd day.
Huh. I've never been to one of those before. The ones that I've seen, like I just think about my father's, and they had the wake was the day before the funeral, and everybody comes. It was an open casket, but then the funeral is different because that's a closed casket. You've got the pastor gives his eulogy, and other people come up and everything, and then you proceed to the burial grounds and everything. That's pretty much the routine I've seen. Pretty much that's the traditional thing that I've seen, but I've never seen it all done on the same day before.
Yeah, I think I have. So these are on 2 different days, and I was wondering what to wear, and I even Googled it and everything, and boy, you could find real traditional stuff. Well, you should wear a tie and a black jacket and black slacks.
Right.
And and other things, which seems more contemporary to me. I'm talking about an August day where it's supposed to be about 90 degrees and humid. And it says, well, wear a darker color shirt for the mood,
Right.
to have the right mood of things, but maybe you could do khaki pants, things like that. So, I don't have to do the sports jacket or whatever. And I think that would be inappropriate today, where for a large part, we're all standing outside and talking. And so I just bring that up to share. There's been a lot of changes over the years. And I think that we're all a little confused as to protocol these days.
The big and most important thing that I can think of regarding this subject is that obviously these things are important and etiquette when it comes to funerals, but I just remember, when it comes to my family members with funerals, I go back to my father again and just remember that all I remembered coming out of that is just that my friends were there. I don't remember what they were wearing. I don't even remember what they said. It didn't even matter what they said. All that mattered was that they were there.
Yeah.
And I didn't care what they were wearing. And at the end of the day, it was just that love that I felt that was all around me, that if you want to be a blessing to the family, that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Bring your love and just be yourself. And Barry, you're like so good at just you're so good in your own skin. And when you go there and just be yourself, you're going to be a blessing to everybody around. That's all there is to it. Just put yourself in that situation. Everything's going to work out. And just remember, there's nothing you can say really there's nothing you can say to bring Irby back.
Right.
It just can't. So there's nothing. I mean, that's what they want. And we all know that can't happen. So it's just standing with the family just makes all the difference to the family.
I think so as well. And what I wanted to say about that is I've gotten to the point where I've dealt with my own shock. And I can honestly say that it didn't take me long to get to a point of happiness for Irby, to get past myself and really think about, and I truly am happy for him. I just really think that he's with his loved ones, not that he didn't leave a lot of people behind here, but boy, he had a lot of loss in his life. And I think his reunion was just absolutely tremendous. And I'm truly happy for him.
There's a great picture in this book that I read, written by a guy named Paul Bunyan. It's called
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah. It sounds like the guy that chops down all the trees, but it's not the same.
Sounds
guy.
Exactly like him, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's the same name. It's not. He didn't double as an author, but he wrote this book called the Pilgrim's Progress. Actually, it's an old book, but it's a very interesting book. And there's a picture of somebody passing away at the end, and what it is they all go down to this lake, and there's a ship that comes in, and it's their loved one is going to get on the ship, and they're all standing there and they're hugging and everything, and she gets on the ship and she's going, and they're all standing on the shore and they're crying, and the boat is coming to the horizon, and they're feeling very sorrowful that they're going to miss their friend and everything. But then the picture flips to the other side. The people on the other shore seeing the ship coming over the horizon, and she's on the ship, and everybody's so excited to see her, and it's a glorious reunion. And it comes from that book, but that's really
you shared that before. It's beautiful.
It's such a beautiful picture,
very well illustrated, like mentally. You even relay it very, very well.
I love it. It makes me feel joy when I think about that. And that's going to be our experience as well. And that's what we're looking forward to.
Agreed.
But these things are hard. They're very hard. And you've got quite a transition to make from that to your mother's 80th birthday, which is tremendous. That is so
it's going to be so cool.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Edwards. That is
her name is Wendy. as a matter of fact.
Fantastic. Oh,
Yes.
happy birthday, Wendy. And 80 is the new 40, I think. And so
she's healthy as a get, man. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, what a blessing to have a mother that's healthy like that at that age. And, and just to celebrate that with the family. So you're going to Amish country. Is that like her kind of place? Is that why you all have chosen that?
Yeah, it is. It's really down to earth, and I'm going to share more about it afterward. Because just in case I don't want to ruin any surprises.
That's good.
Yeah, we have some more stuff in store. I have an interesting subject that I still think fits in the beginning of the O5O segment that you're gonna find this interesting. So
I got a couple things too.
Cool. I just got over here, right? Like an hour ago to our University Heights house here in the rental. And it was two, how do I say this? Okay. So I was going to say it's two ladies staying here, and I met Val, and a very nice middle-aged woman, like 60-ish maybe. And we had a nice conversation when I came over to mow the lawn and stuff. And she tells me that though not available right now, that Alec, A-L-I-K, is her friend that is staying with her. And she goes by they. Oh, and that's her pronoun, they.
I gotcha. Okay.
And now I'm contradicting myself by saying her pronoun is they, but you see the irony. And so there I was faced with that. And now I have had a ton of texts with Alec, and just about the plants in the house, and a lot of joking around, going back and forth. I mean, terrific texts. And we did for the month that they were here. And I wanted to and I want to say right up front. So I got in here, I never know what to expect. And it's this stormy day, it's humid and it's gross out. And I come in here and it is clean as a bone. And I mean, it's just, and that is the one thing today that went well. And I mean, spotless. And
this is the same room that you did your last podcast in when the other people, the guys, left. Yeah. And I got to say, behind you looks totally different because it looked like there was I don't know, maybe somebody was wrestling in the background before the film.
Lisa said, and she's like, you just don't do well on your own. You're all disheveled. You're in a dirty t-shirt. You don't even think about it.
There was some junk in the background.
Because she always looks at me before we're about to start. She looks at my shirt. She'll be like, no. And she'll, like, if it's a certain shirt, she'll like come here, roll up these sleeves a little bit or whatever.
I know.
Too funny.
Anne-Marie's normally asleep when I get ready to do the show, so they would probably she would be doing the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, why do you have that thread hanging off of your collar like that?
It's funny how what's the word? Unobservant. There's the word for unobservant. Yeah. I am.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'll have like some food all down my shirt or something, you know. How did that get there?
I always say I could never be a detective.
No, my wife could be one though. She would be outstanding.
Women are like that. They're just sensing everything all the time, and
all the details. I don't know how they do it. Keeping up with all those details. Yeah, like it's. I try to tell her how freeing it is to just turn your brain off.
My mother swears to God, she has said this for decades, but and I know she thoroughly believes this. Men can't see dust. It's just not within our sensory range.
Yes. Crumbs fall into the same category.
I see.
Oh, you do? Oh, well, I don't see enough of them.
Yeah.
That's my problem. I see big crumbs. I don't see the little tiny ones. I just don't notice them.
I have to say, doing this Airbnb thing, I've had to get better, more sensitive to all of these things as I go along. And Lisa'd come over and be like, this place is filthy. You know, I'm ready to turn it over. And it's like,
Yeah, how could this be filthy?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You could eat off the floor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
So I want to get back to the being confronted with the pronoun situation for the first time in my life.
That's a tough one.
And immediately, it's like just me being me and put yourself in the same situation. I want to respect that person. Of course. And but I don't know how to say they in those circumstances. And if I'm talking about the two of them, my ex-renters together, I'm also saying they. I know. I wish that people like that. I don't know if this means that that's a man doing the.
You're on thin ice now.
I know. I don't know the word. But transitioning, that's the word I'm trying to find. Transitioning to a woman. Right. But is there a way that or if it's a woman transitioning to a man, that seems
it's a trans man.
Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Okay. And in either case,
like for instance, Caitlyn Jenner is a trans woman.
Oh, transition to a woman.
Right.
Gotcha. Hey, man, you just shed a lot of light.
Simplified it. Yes.
Yeah.
But the they thing, this is tough because we've been taught all of our lives to use they in a certain context. Correct. So now we're asked to use they as a pronoun. However, that pronoun grammatically does not fit into how we've learned to speak. Yeah. So now we have to say, if this woman were upset by the terms of the contract, you'd have to say, they was really angry about that.
Yeah, it just
that's
makes
not
us
grammatically correct, right? To say that, and also if people don't know that you're speaking about an individual rather than a group,
everyone's confused and uncomfortable now.
They're going to think that either you can't speak English or you've made a mistake. And what you really meant was they are really upset and they're thinking it's a group of people. Exactly. And now it's really hard to communicate.
I wish, and I'm ignorant in this situation, clearly, admittedly, I wish if he wants to transition to a she, that he would say, please from now on, refer to me as she. I mean, that makes sense. I know people are like, well, I don't identify as either. That's
what's going on. Right.
And it's like, well, okay. I don't know what to do about that, but it just makes everybody and Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot too, because this is the problem. This is a nice segue for something I would like to bring up, but that's what got him in hot water about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh yeah, but that's the whole impetus on that whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that he's like, hey, I don't care how you want to identify, but now you're trying to take away free speech. You're trying to impose a speech on other people. You can do whatever you want to do, but don't tell other people what they have to do now and make it a moral dilemma issue. And because I feel literally, I think as we discuss this, we feel like there's no way that we can get this right. We are being painted into a corner. Right. And if we go right or left, we're going to step right into the mousetrap. And now we're horrible, sexist, transphobic people. And because we're put into this odd situation.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we haven't seen anything like this yet. I mean, we've seen where, like for instance, Black people being called African Americans, and by the way, I have an article on this.
Often a misnomer.
Absolutely a misnomer, because I don't know any Africans in my family, but that's a whole other story.
You did the DNA blood test, and you're more.
I got them, and they're in there. The West Africans are there. I just don't know them, So, but here's the thing: is that we changed the nomenclature of the race, but we didn't change the nomenclature of the pronouns for the race. So that's a whole different thing. We've never seen anything like this before, and it actually doesn't change a name, it grammatically changes the language. And that's a completely new thing, and it seems like it's crossing a line just because it's causing a deep change in how we communicate. It's not a surface level change. You have to think differently in order to convey those pronouns in a context that would make sense, which really is it's ambiguous and vague. It's very hard to describe what you're talking about. It's confusing.
It is.
And think about an emergency situation where you're like, they is at the corner of, and so the police officer is like, if he's thinking there's a whole bunch of people, so you're going to have to bring backup. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know what you're saying, but I want to put it.
Communicate. It's hard to communicate.
I want to put it in this context: is that 20 years ago, just 20 years ago, we used to still make so many gay jokes and slurs in that direction, and we've become way more sensitive to that in so many respects. And if you go back 50 years ago, it's dramatic. It's mind-blowing, the difference in the way we look at homosexualism. And so maybe this is the beginning of this for trans people. I don't know. We'll only know when we're looking back on it. But it makes me think, though, so my only point is that it's a clumsy transition for us that are not intending to be clumsy. We're intending to be respectful, but it's just really difficult.
Well, you know what, Barry? I sometimes wonder, like, who comes up with these things? Like, is
one person, and then it becomes a big deal because everybody goes, "Oh, I could get attention if I jump on this bandwagon and call you a homophobe or a transphobe," and now everybody gets scared of being called that. It's the same thing that we talked about with the Cleveland Indians. You got a couple people that get on this, "Oh, we can get offended by this whole Indian thing," and ignore the entire majority of people, including the Native American Indians, that said, "I'm not offended by this. It's a celebration."
Yeah. It's I'm just thinking about the whole they, them kind of thing. And are there really a lot of people that want this? I mean, I certainly see that on social media, but I'm finding that when you see it on social media, it doesn't really mean that's the majority. I've got an article that right here from Gallup, the ones that do the Gallup poll. Sure. And we've seen these words come out that you wonder, well, where did African American come from? Is that what most Black people want? And what about this new one, Latinx? And so Gallup just did this.
Latino, Latinas, Hispanics. I saw that poll. Overwhelmingly want to be called Hispanic, and what the hell is Latinx or whatever, however you want to say it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Got me all ruffled right there.
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, because in this particular poll that they just took, that it looks like 23% prefer Hispanic of those in that race, and 15% Latino. Only 4% say that they prefer Latinx. Only 4. So who's coming up with
white people?
57%, by the way, said it does not matter, which I think is pretty interesting.
I do too.
Yeah. Well, as far as the poll for Black people, Black or African American, it's very interesting what they came out with on the poll. It said for Black, 17%. For African American, it's a tie, 17%. And 58% said it does not matter. I think that's kind of shocking to me that it doesn't matter. So all of this, here it is. 58% Black people say it doesn't matter. 57% of Hispanics said it doesn't matter. So almost 60%, that would be a super majority, say it doesn't matter. So here on television, in social media, we make such a huge deal of this.
But it's because really, we don't have bigger problems to worry about.
Right. Well, the people that are in that race don't really care. And I suspect, because I was looking actually to see what American Indians thought about being called Indian. I couldn't find anything. This is what I found, but I suspect that's the same thing there.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So what you make me think about is I've talked about her several times. Yeonmi Park.
Oh
She
man,
she is the girl from North Korea
I
that.
really love her.
Yeah. Did you listen to that
I
interview with Joe
listened
Rogan?
to about a half hour, 40 minutes of it, and I thought she was fantastic.
She is.
I just think what an intelligent young
Mm.
woman she is, for especially after having gone through this literal hell all of her life, to be able to communicate that with such succinctful language.
And
That's
what we mean by communicate that is she was from North Korea, and no one prior to her being vocal about this knew really anything or cared about what's really going on in North Korea. Her point is we'd rather be obsessed with our pronouns here and talk about how horrible our country is.
mm-hmm.
And she came from North Korea where they own nothing. And you don't even know what I mean when I say that. I mean nothing. And everything belongs to the state. They don't go to the grocery store and get food. They forage. They eat bugs, grasshoppers, dragonflies. She says a good source of protein, but they were always in a state of starvation. The first time she saw a trash can when she escaped to China, and that was a whole nother horrifying story, but China has a lot more than North Korea. First time she saw a trash can, she asked what that was. And because she couldn't conceive that people had something to throw away because they own nothing. What she learned in North Korea is that the world began at the beginning of what's his name?
Kim Il-sung.
Say again.
Kim Il-sung.
Yeah, I have the hardest time with Kim Il-sung. At the beginning of his is it
his
him
reign,
or his family?
His birth. Yeah, it
his
was.
birth.
It was the beginning of it. It was his birthday.
That's the beginning of the universe. He is God.
It's like the birth of Christ, right?
She'd never seen a map. She didn't know what was going on. They didn't have. North Korea does not have electricity. When you see it from the satellite, it's the darkest place on the globe.
Yeah.
And not
only is it dark from
cannibalism is a real thing there.
Yes. It's not only dark from space, it's gray, like nothing's growing there.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a cancer actually from space. It's pretty crazy. But these stories that she told about what it's like there, when she talked about the starvation and how in the morning it takes her about a half an hour to just come to her senses and start moving around because they're starving. The malnutrition is causing a brain fog to happen. And she mentioned that everyone there in North Korea is in that brain fog. They're sort of stumbling around like zombies. And think how easy it is to control a race like that. What she said is that there's no way for them to have any higher level of thinking there because they're obsessed with being able to find some kind of food. She said that if they found a snake, that was a huge bonus.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't find a snake, you know what I mean? Like finding any kind of meat was a gigantic thing. She talked about her mother witnessing somebody who had butchered a cow that was on state property being executed. Yeah. And then another thing that just jumped off was that the leader, Kim Il-sung, had been see something about them having pets, the population having pets really made him think that they're honoring these pets above the state, above him. So he ordered that every one of those dogs be
seized and killed.
Right. I mean, can you imagine somebody coming to your house and taking your dog and you never, it's going to happen and you never see it again?
There's worse stories than that.
Much worse. And she talked about how desensitized that she was.
They didn't
growing up in this type of a society.
They didn't have words for love. They didn't have a word for me or I. Everything was we because it's about the collective.
That's the thing, is it's about the collective and the collective salvation underneath of the God of that nation, who is Kim Il-sung. They have to worship this person. And really, the way that she painted this nation, it sounded like they were living in hell there. Like that is
she said it's a giant
hell.
concentration camp, and that it is now bordered with electric fence, mines, and armed guards. And it is a giant concentration camp. It's disgusting.
She talked about the amount of death that is there. She was just desensitized towards it. Going to the train station, there were just dead bodies there that reminded
floating
her
down the river.
Just wood. That's what she said. They were like wood to her. Like, you know, how you see wood all chopped up and everything, and you don't have any feeling towards that wood. That's how she felt. That's how the whole society feels. There's no dignity in human life whatsoever. And they don't mind if 90% of them starve to death. The government doesn't, I mean, that's actually a policy that they have. They're purposely, their aim is to purposely starve them to death.
Yeah.
That is how they keep them under control. And I think really, I hadn't listened to the whole thing, but I think her point has been that there are things that are happening here in this country. This is a warning. When the government wants to take over every part of what you do, what you think, where you go, who your friends are, where you go to school, and what kind of education you get, that this leads to this type of a lifestyle that they have in North Korea. She talked about receiving as a gift after she escaped a planner. And but what is this, a planner? And they explained, well, no, you write down, you know, what you're going to do the next day or the next week. And she thought, who does this? The government plans out what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to eat, who I'm going to talk to, when I go to bed. That's how these places are. And if you say the wrong thing, you're eliminated. And we see our country starting to really go down this road, and it's a slippery slope. It's a big warning sign what's happening right now, because you start going down that slope and you start gathering speed exponentially. We've seen a change over the last 7 months that I've never seen in my entire lifetime. And it's so quickly.
It seems like, well, because we've become aware of things like critical race theory too late. And it's America. It has to go that far before anybody believes you, because prior to that, you're just a conspiracy theorist. And so that's what I want to mention, a few things that, and how she ended her podcast. If you listen, you got to listen to the whole thing so you realize the horrors that she's seen. I'm going to just summarize a few things quickly. So at about 13, her and her mother escaped to China, where her mother, they didn't know what China was. They had no idea. They just saw lights there and figured that they could find food. And as soon as they got over there, they were seized by the sex slave industry. Her mother was raped right in front of her. She didn't know what rape or sex was prior to this, but her mother offered herself because they wanted to rape her. And so they were both sold into sex slavery in different places. And so I'd say about a year later, maybe 14 or 15 years old, she was sold to an owner who then raped her for 2 years, and did have a degree of compassion towards her. But you got to understand the society. This is the whole Chinese society. It's disgusting. And she was able to find her mother and flee to South Korea. This is probably when she's 15 years old, where she got an education. She literally, by this time, when she got into school at 15, she was found to have the awareness of about a 7-year-old. And she got obsessed with learning and getting educated. And in South Korea, that's what they do. That is what they do. They're obsessed with education there. And so she got this amazing education, and then had the opportunity to come to the US to go to university. And she went to Columbia and was completely horrified with how bad college is here now. And this is what she discussed at length with Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson has gone on this crusade to uncover this is what is going on with colleges throughout the United States, with a lot of different experts. It's a horrible thing. So what Okay, so first, one of the first things she said, our idea of oppression, in quotes, is hearing the wrong pronouns or arguing about changing the names of sports teams.
Right.
That, and you know, after what she's seen, and a rape survivor, starvation survivor, all of these things, she said every college class at Columbia ended with, quote, the only way to fix things is to get rid of Western civilization, get rid of the Constitution, get rid of white men. They are the problem. The source of every single problem that we have is white men. Every class. She said, an example, music class. The professor asked, who has a problem with listening to Western music? Everyone raised their hands. He says, bigots like Mozart and Beethoven oppress the music of minority groups. And Yeonmi has finally found being able to talk about this the way she has the last few years. She wrote a book in 2015 about this before she went to college. But now being able to talk about this, she's found one or two other people from North Korea that she can share this with, because she has felt so alone. Nobody understands this.
This
and
is
people listening to us right now can't really fathom. I suggest, please, for the love of God, look up Yeonmi Park on Joe Rogan's podcast that just came out last week, or even the one with Jordan Peterson. Both are equally horrific, but enlightening.
This is the problem, Barry, is that here in the West, we can't fathom what Marxism it does. This is what it is. It's Marxism, and Marxism has been the biggest murdering mechanism in the last 100 years. This book by Stephen Scherer, we interviewed him on Cyber Talk TV a couple of weeks ago, and he spent time in a Chinese communist detention, an American, and he says the same thing that Yeonmi Park says. Is it Parks?
Park. I was calling her Parks before. I think maybe that's how Jordan Peterson had it, but on this podcast, it's Park.
He was saying the same thing that she says, is that he's isolated and alone. When he tries to communicate this to other people here in the West, they look at him like he's got three heads. They just can't understand. They can't fathom it. And he actually says that's a blessing in a way, because we haven't had this kind of oppression here. But the problem is that we've not been educated of what the dangers are of Marxism. And really the only people that understand it are the ones that have gone out of their way to research and really learn about it and listen to these people like Yeonmi Park. I mean, these are the experts. They're the ones that experience this.
Real
they
people.
Understand these are the people, these are the watchtower people. They can see the storm coming. Or they're the canary in the coal mine. They can sense it before we can sense it, because they're much more sensitive to this kind of thing. And every person that I know that has come from a place like Venezuela or Cuba or even Russia, these people are all talking the same way. They see the same warning signs that are happening here in America. And we need to start having an open ear to what these people are saying. I'm so glad that Joe Rogan did that interview with Yeonmi Park. He's doing a great service, I believe, to America.
Absolutely, he is. The long form interview that the guy has, as he says, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Joe says he's educated himself so much over the last 10 years of doing this podcast that, you know, it's unbelievable. And
I can relate.
Yeah, I check out his podcast to see what's up about twice a week, because he has a lot of MMA fighters on there and stuff that I don't care too much. Although when I do listen to them, oh my God, they're so intelligent too. They have very intelligent conversations. Yes. But you only got so many hours in a day. So I look for the most deep and interesting ones that he has. And he's an amazing interviewer. I want to make the point. It was a very, very sad ending. Joe is talking to her and he's like, man, you really paint a bleak picture. Do you think there's hope here? She hesitated a lot. And she said, she just doesn't know that, you know, because China's probably, as she says, going to hang on longer than us and beat us, because the more soft we become, and you know how soft we are becoming,
Right.
She says China knows nothing but resilience, viciousness, and violence. This is what they know. And they are pushing propaganda upon us. They are infiltrating social media with paying people, I think millions of people, to get in there and pretend that they're other Americans and inflate all of these arguments going on. And people falling for all of this politicization, polarization, team this, team that, you're just being led around by your nose ring. You got to break down the barriers. You got to see what's going on. You're being played. Just absolutely right, being played. Our media is a huge part of this problem. And maybe we're right at the cusp of usurping mainstream media completely with this privatized media that we are doing now. As you said, what Joe Rogan is doing, he's reaching millions of people, and so is Jordan Peterson. So are other people like them. And that's why we feel it's very important for us to bring to our friends some of these summaries and hopefully encourage you to check out some of these podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's really important too, Barry. And I I always want to keep in the forefront of my mind as we talk about the serious nature of the threat that's coming from China, especially because it is rocking our world here in America. And most people are blind to how that's actually happening. And I have to admit, I was too, until I really started to to uncover some of these stones. And now I can see the infiltration that's happening all over the place. They're using the philosophy of the art of war. And it is death by 1,000 pinpricks. And so they're coming at us in every opening that they can have. They're coming, and it's espionage. It's all of these different kinds of things that we can't really see as traditional warfare. And that's really the trick here. But we have faced in our history of America some pretty dire times that we've been able to make it through. And even when I think about the complacency here of the American citizenry, we've seen the same thing before. I'm thinking specifically of World War II. There was a lot of the same general things. There were a lot of the same general things and feelings and the kind of government that we had at the time. Many similarities there. And Pearl Harbor really woke up the sleeping giant. And so, I don't know what it takes for America to wake up. Can America wake up again? I believe that it's possible because there's something that Yeonmi Park does not actually have an experience with, and that is our roots and our culture of where we are. I mean, we grew up with this Constitution. We grew up in a country under God. She did not. She didn't come into that. And really, when it comes down to it, I mean, at least from my point of view, I see this as the ultimate battle that's taking place behind the scenes between good and evil. And the Chinese Communist Party, they really represent evil. What they're doing is terrifying. And really, there is a good that comes from this nation. I'm not saying everybody's good here, that would be a lie, but our nation is premised on good. That's what the nation is. And I just believe that when it comes to the battle between good and evil will always put up a good fight. But in the end, good's going to win. And
I sure hope you're right. I have my doubts. I really do. Every civilization, and they pointed this out in the podcast, every civilization falls. But the Chinese government seems to be positioning themselves to do something along the lines of Rome. Ancient Rome.
They do.
That kind of longevity. We've been here like 300 years. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke how quickly we got corrupted. That's the shame. Our forefathers put together such a brilliant and inspirational government, but just still, I mean, it's amazing how it's impossible to stop corruption of human beings.
Well, and I really believe that when the founders put together this country, of course, it was a benefit to this entire country. But what they were doing was they were putting a concept together,
Yeah.
an idea together that actually has changed the entire world. We've seen evidence of that. And it is a result of the goodness of God. I mean, that is what the Declaration of Independence talks about. So when they framed it, they actually framed it as the battle between good and evil, and that their faith in the God of the universe overcoming evil is what we're premised on. So it comes down to our core belief system: is good more powerful than evil? Is light more powerful than dark? And I just say this, that when you look at Rome, for example, and what happened at the end of the Roman Empire, it was a result of corruption and evil that had happened within Rome that disintegrated their power structure, their power platform. When you're on a platform of good, it doesn't disintegrate that way. That's what we have to get back to in America, is that foundational good. And I really believe that it many times takes a shaking, a rattling to cause that to happen. We saw that at the end of at 9/11. There was a brief time there at 9/11 where
About
there
a
was
month.
it was unfortunate that it lasted like that. I thought there was going to be a permanent change there,
Me
but it
too.
didn't happen. It was discouraged. It's discouraging that didn't happen. But can it happen again? I believe that it can.
Oh, yeah.
I have hope.
I do too. And I want to say that when it comes to spiritual, religious thoughts, that I'm very open, and I'm a very spiritual person. I don't pretend that I have anything really figured out in those regards. But Merle, when you talk about the battle of good and evil, I just want people to realize that it's like, to me, it's a battle against human corruption, which seems to be a natural inclination.
It is.
And the reason I say that is because I also feel that we've been in this transition for quite some time, for decades, where as people get a little bit more aware in science, everybody's like, believe the science. And what they're meaning by that, they're using that for two different things. They're using that as a rally cry around climate change, and a rally cry around anti-religious, like anti-Christian kind of belief. And what I think that is we're caught in the middle at this point, for a good reason too. Like, I think as people get increase their awareness, and everyone thinks that they're so ultimately aware right now, that's when you are completely lost. It's kind of like the 20-year-old that thinks that they know everything, and then you get to be 40 years old and realize you didn't know anything. And it's kind of where we are as a society, but for very good reason. One thing that we seem to never be able to talk about in this country, and Jordan Peterson pointed this out in an interview I saw not too long ago, where he once again, and I only saw it once, I couldn't find it again, but once again he was asked, why don't you express why, or if you believe in God or not? And he goes, once again, he's like, oh God, I hate that question. And he goes, it started to explain, and one of the reasons why I hate that question so much is because I don't know how to answer it. He goes, to be quite honest, I don't know how to answer that question. But he went on to lay out a few reasons why. And the one that really stuck with me is what I'm getting back to is, he said, because one of the reasons is because what happened in the Catholic Church over the last couple of decades, the uncovering of the prolific raping of boys that was subsequently covered up by the entire Catholic Church. What this tells you is that the entire Catholic Church, right up to the top, don't believe what they are preaching themselves, that they will burn in hell eternally. They clearly don't believe that, if they are willing to cover up for fellow human beings. So he says that is a very big, and what I'm trying to say is, That's a very big problem in our society right now, is we try to struggle with our spirituality. That's this perfect ammunition to say, this is why I believe in science and not religion. And what I'm trying to say is there's a middle point here. There's just something that I feel. I feel interconnected with everything. I know from science that atoms do not stay. We are not made up of this finite group of atoms, that they jump from this form to another, and that they can come from different stars. We all have all of these different atoms. We are only held together by energy. These atoms are only held together by energy, and they're constantly interchanging. Like I can have atoms from you back in California and you from me. So we're only held together by energy. Everything is held together by energy. The more that we learn about quantum physics, which is still such a mystery, but the more we realize we don't know. And things are, the more that I get, the more awareness that I get, the more, you could almost say, religious that I get.
Well, I think that was very good, Barry. I just want to say that when we talk about religion and spirituality, I see those two things as very, very different. And I see you as a very spiritual person. I don't see you as a religious person.
No.
I'm not a religious person. I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. But that's not religion. To me is rules and things.
Dogma.
Just like rituals that you have to do. I'm allergic to that. That's not me. I don't believe that that's really what I think the most important thing is having a relationship with God. I think the Bible proves that out as well. I wanted to address the believe the science thing, because you had, I think, really in an excellent way pointed out that believe the science is actually a call to not believe God. And
it's being bastardized as
that's how it is. And I just want to say, believe the science is a weird thing to say to begin with, because
you're picking and choosing.
To say believe the science is to actually not really understand what science is. And when you take a look at science, science is made up of theories. Theories have to be proven and reproven by hypothesis through the scientific method, by recreating the atmosphere and causing these things to happen over and over. That's how you prove scientific theories. But when you start to say believe the science, it's as if science is rock solid and that the theories are fact and that they're one and done. Science is never one and done. Science is constantly evolving. And when we start to say believe the science, it starts to become propaganda. And we can see it now as being used as a political weapon against political enemies. When you say believe the science, it's a misnomer. That's not what science is. The scientific method that we all learned proves that out. We should be nervous when somebody says believe the science. What we should look at is embrace the science. And there is no, I think, once again, Barry, you're so intelligent when you say that there's a middle ground. You don't have to choose between God and science.
There you go.
God is the master scientist. The reason we have theories about science is because we don't know everything. We know that there is a God of the universe that has put all of these things in order, and we're constantly trying to aspire to that wisdom. And we know that it's above us. So we're constantly evolving our knowledge based on the testing of that. But if we start to say, believe the science and it's one and done, that absolutely devastates the field of science, and we'll never move beyond where we are today. In fact, we'll regress. So it's an interesting wordplay when people say that, but it's
so
one
divisive.
of those. It's one of those things where it's like, grab your wallet when somebody tells you that, because you're about to be manipulated somehow, and it's probably going to be your tax dollars are going to disappear. When bureaucrats tell you to believe the science, look out. They're not scientists. They know nothing about science. Right. All they want to do is get reelected. And if they're going to now they're going to put a bunch of people with white coats behind them to get the votes. I think, look, I used to be a carny. These are some of the best carnies ever. And carnies aren't really that smart. So this is the thing.
Can you speak to what I said about what Jordan Peterson brought up about how the Catholic Church, the disservice that they did, and mostly the point of the realization that whether people realize it consciously or just in the back of their minds, but clearly the leaders of the church don't believe what they're preaching.
It's one of the worst things. So the Bible reserves judgment for people that are in leadership, leading the flock. And really, wolves. He says that they're wolves in sheep's clothing, and to beware of these people. And so they'll come to you in His name, but they're corrupt. And the fact of the matter is. It's unfortunate that we look at our institutions of religion and try to say, well, that's what God is like, because He's not. God is look, we live in a fallen world. That's the whole premise of the Bible. When Adam and Eve bit into that apple or whatever that piece of fruit was, because it doesn't actually say it was an apple in the Bible, really? Whatever it was that they bit into, that changed the entire world. It changed the universe into a corruption, and that mankind then became susceptible to corruption. And really, Barry, you were bringing this up earlier. I love what you were saying. I mean, the way that the founders put together this country was exactly with that in mind, is that we live in a fallen world and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so with that in mind, we have to put together checks and balances in order to make sure that these people don't have the absolute power to use it and wield it against a population for their own benefit. But what we're seeing here in this country is an erosion of those constitutional powers that actually cause that separation of power so that corruption doesn't happen. And especially, Barry, over the last 2 years under coronavirus, when President Trump declared a national emergency, it was the start of the dominoes falling, because what that did was it allowed the governors of each of the states to amass not only their executive power that they were elected to have, but also the legislative power as well. And that has changed our country dramatically. And what we've also seen, and you and I have talked about this a million times, is that when we give that kind of power to the federal government, we never get it back. We've got to fight to get that back. And we've got to be and of course, they're going to use these crisis situations and pull that lever every single time. Remember Rahm Emanuel saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Look, over the last 30 years, every crisis we've seen, they have used it as a cudgel to beat our liberties out of our hands. And now we live in a different America. But back to your question, I don't know, did I answer the question about the Catholic Church? I'm disgusted by that, but it's leading people away from God. They've done a terrible disservice, but that isn't how God is. I'm ashamed of that.
And it's the fact that they could not come out and say, we got something like a 10-year plan of restitution to humankind as what happened here. It's just like we all decided, no, we can't talk about it. That's pretty much what happened.
It's terrible. And really, the Catholic Church has got a long history of this kind of corruption. This is how the Protestant Church actually came to be, because, Catholic means universal. And so this was the universal church. And because of this kind of corruption, it's split into all of these different denominations. And I really believe that the Catholic Church is especially under this Pope, they're under a massive spiritual attack right now. And it's ugly. It's ugly.
They've always been way too powerful. That's always a problem. Religion should never get that kind of power. It's too manipulative. It's too easily corrupted.
This is it, is that they became a political force and really became like they were, it was, again, back to absolute power. They were the judge, jury, and executioner of all of Europe for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they did a terrible thing. And now you look at Europe, they're almost devoid of any kind of solid Christianity there as a result. And now look what's happened. The whole place has changed dramatically. It doesn't even look like the same place it was just 30 years ago.
I know we do need a moral compass, and it needs to be based on some common sense and the science that we know of today. And what has happened is we got two sides battling. It's just like everything else. So when you get the far left saying we believe in science, that's so divisive. And it is pointing right at real religious Christians that aren't going to dig in. I've always had that problem with Christians that would say, you know, you don't believe what we believe, you're going to burn in hell. Come on, man. I just can't buy that either. So that's very divisive. And so that's what you're stuck with. Everything's so damn divisive, but we need a moral compass. And so we need that to evolve. We need to evolve our conversation a little bit because, boy, everything's kind of getting away from us. I want to mention one thing, Merle, that I think next week I want to talk about Bitcoin. Jordan Peterson had a podcast. It's only an hour and a half with these four guys that have a book club and that are all involved in Bitcoin. They're very intelligent people. And the reason that Peterson found them is because their latest thing, what they were discussing was Peterson's book, Maps of Meaning, and they directly related to the financial implications of Bitcoin and the possible future of it. All I want to say is for now, because it's very complicated, that these guys find Bitcoin to be incorruptible and can take the money away from the World Bank and the Federal Reserve. And boy, there's a start at reversing some corruption. We'll talk about that in more detail.
It's very interesting. I don't know a whole lot about this.
I didn't know anything.
I'd love to listen to that. So send it over to me so we can discuss it.
And I have a link too that I have both those links. And Ben Shapiro has an excellent 14-minute description on Bitcoin on YouTube. So I'll send that to you so that we can talk about that. It's really deep. These guys are talking like, oh, I've been in economics my whole life, but then I discovered Bitcoin and went down the rabbit hole. So for 2 years, I've been trying to absolutely define it and figure it all out. That's how complicated it is.
Wow. For 2 years. Jeez.
Man, it really looks like it could be a solution to a big problem that we have. Our finances, the banks, and the bank owns the world. The World Bank absolutely owns the world. But I think it's about, I'm so like, where are we because of our crazy time trying to get started this morning? Are we at about an hour, you think?
Yeah, we are. We're a little over an hour right now.
Okay. I had a lot of current events that I wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll put that into the after show for as long as we can. Good. I want to lighten this up with one thing here, and I have an idea. I was thinking, wow, it'd be kind of cool if you and I switched off on talking about this thing. Now I'm looking for this article. I found it, and a terrific, inspiring article. And can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about if we switch off paragraphs? I'll bring it in and then you pick up. Right. And underneath her photo, you pick up with it. This is what she wrote. So this is Florida woman inadvertently starts a revolution inside a convenience store. And this was just a few days ago, August 6th. And here we go. A Florida woman has gone viral after she posted a story about helping a homeless man outside of a convenience store, which sparked a chain reaction of kindness. Barbara Mack took to Facebook, where she explained how she bought a homeless man a bottle of water on a very hot summer day, and someone shamed her for it.
Oh, man. So this is what she wrote. I may have inadvertently started a revolution in the convenience store today. I stopped to grab a water, and on the way in, I saw a homeless man I know sitting in the shade with his bike beside him. He was red-faced and shaky looking. I asked if he was okay, and he told me that he was just resting. The guy's got the mind of a child, and I'm afraid he doesn't know he needs to stay extra hydrated when it's super hot outside. There were a bunch of people in line in front of me, and only one cashier. So I grabbed 2 waters and yelled to the cashier that I was taking one to the guy outside and I'd be right back. I'm a regular there. When I came in, the lady in front of me turned around, hands on her hip, and told me that I was just enabling that homeless person, said with a sneer, and that I shouldn't be wasting my money on him. It's hot as hell in Florida right now, mid 90s with humidity around 80. It's a good day for heat stroke, and I told her so. I said I'd rather give him a water than call an ambulance. I was going to shrug it off, let it go, chalk it up to ignorance and the heat making everybody cranky. And then she told me I should be ashamed of myself, that somebody should call the police on him, and that it should be illegal to beg for money. The people who give the homeless money just encourage them to stay homeless, and that should be illegal too. Ashamed. I should be ashamed for giving some poor old guy a water. It costs a whole $1, by the way, and I should get in trouble for making sure he didn't stroke out in this heat. I guess I look nice, approachable, like I wouldn't rip your head off. I am nice most of the time, but not always.
Let me take this. And I lost my temper. I told her to call a cop and report me for buying stuff at a convenience store. I told her that I wasn't in the damn mood for crazy right now, that it's 100 effing degrees outside and I'm hot and tired and sick to death of stupid people. That if she had 1 ounce of compassion in her body, she'd buy him a cold drink too. That maybe she would figure out why she needs to be to accost complete strangers. And how about after that, she backed the F out of my face and out of my business and turn back around and not say one more damn word to me. I'm just about deaf in one ear. I tried to modulate my voice unless I get angry. It got pretty loud. It got pretty loud there at the end. There was dead silence in the store. And then someone said loudly, "For real." And the guy at the front of the line told the cashier to add a sandwich to his purchases for the guy outside. The guy behind me bought an extra ice cream. The girl behind him got change for a 20 because that guy probably could use some cash. Go ahead, Merle.
Every single person in line got him something. Everyone except the now very embarrassed lady in front of me who slunk out without saying another word. When I got to the cashier, she didn't charge me for either of the waters because she was going to take him one anyway. And mine was free because of the entertainment. When I went outside, he was eating his ice cream and drinking his water with a pile of stuff around him, a big old grin on his face. He didn't look shaky anymore. And there, people, is the story of why I hate people.
And why I love people.
And why I love people all in the same damn minute. I sat in the car and drank my water and laughed with tears in my eyes, same as I'm doing now.
Oh.
This post has been shared more than 139,000 times, and she says she's glad her story has been an inspiration to so many.
And isn't that great?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. When you first read that, like she started a revolution in the thing. I was like, oh no! But what a great story this is, and what a great heart she has.
Absolutely, but it does also bring up a philosophical discussion too. Let's not get crazy about it, but about begging. Yeah, because people on the street, it's really well known. I've seen the Dateline specials of people like putting on their dirty clothes to go through the woods out to the city block and start begging, and they're making $50,000 a year in tax-free money.
Well, the fact is that, you know, especially out here in Los Angeles, you can't give to everybody that's begging for money because there's so many people that are begging for money out there. And my philosophy is this, because I have a compassionate heart, but I can't give to everybody. So I just let God lead my heart. Like if my heart is tugged in a certain way, then that means I need to do that. But if it's not, then I just keep on walking, you know, I mean, that's it. That's the only governor I have in this whole thing. And I can't give to everybody, but God just leads me right to the people that I believe he wants me to be with. And that's how I do it.
Yeah. And then
because you're right. There are people out there that are going to take advantage of you. And there are people that use that as as sort of a trap to get you into a very bad situation. So we've always got to, use our hearts to or your gut. You get a gut feeling. Go with your gut.
Absolutely. Okay, with that, those great parting words. And check us out on the after show. You'll see it come up right at the bottom of your screen. And talk to you guys next week. Love you guys.